In this video, I would love to invite you to join me for a fantastic conversation I had with Pam Gregory. So, she and I sat down together a couple of months ago and talked through her version of where things are headed from an astrology perspective, and combined with my perspective of where things are going from a channel's perspective. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm, and I do that by raising my awareness up as high as I can go, and then I stretch a little higher, I connect, and then messages and information come through. And I share it here with you guys on YouTube, on my own YouTube channel, which is under my name, Ann Tucker. And so when she and I put our heads together, it was super exciting to see all of the overlaps, how all of the astrology is supporting everything we're receiving from spirit. So we decided at the time we had to do this again. So in this conversation, we covered all kinds of amazing stuff. My favorite question was how will astrology change when we have shifted to our higher consciousness? What if astrology right now is often telling us about our wounding, about the issues we're facing in life, and if in the new reality we're supposed to be basically releasing all of our karma, how will astrology change? And so, anyways, Pam has some amazing ideas about that to share. So I know you guys are going to love this conversation. For those of you who do not yet know Pam, which is crazy because this is her channel, I would like you to know Pam is an amazing astrologer, somebody that I have watched for a long time. She is a really one of the most loved astrologers, and she covers the happenings of our world, usually looking at the cycles of the moon, and just has such a wise perspective to offer on things. So I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, terrific. Lovely to be with you, Anne.
Thank you. You too. How have you been?
Very, very busy.
Have
But
you? What?
I'm getting really quite excited because I'm getting some clarity, about the coming years from you, and other things are coming in, and it's starting to take form a
Yeah.
little more. And I think things are super speedy now. I really think things are super speedy.
Yeah, I do too.
And also, my feeling is, Anne, unless I take a little bit of quiet time,
Yes.
new stuff is not going to drop in.
Yes. I
I've
feel
just,
that exactly. These next months are, I feel the pull to just go internal and it's same thing as I know I'm on the brink of a change and I have to let it gestate. It has to. Yeah, I
yeah,
feel
I'm
the
really,
exact same
otherwise
way.
we're just kind of chasing our tail in the same
Yeah.
paradigm. It's going to be
Yeah.
such a paradigm shift, I think.
Like it's so funny. I have always been kind of a skeptic myself, and it's funny to be the angel channel who's a skeptic, but it's true. And I'm a logical person, and I like to judge things based on my own experience. I don't tend to take another person's word. I tend to want to have my own evaluation of things and feel it. I want to feel my way to the truth. And so, as some of these more fantastical ideas about where we're headed started, and even as the angels were saying, some of the fantastical ideas, and they're fantastic, but I am really starting to feel it. Like I'm starting to feel this is true. And I know I'm not the only one saying it. Like I know, so you were saying that there was this guy so can you repeat that?
Yeah. There's this chap who follows my work. I don't know him at all personally, but he's done an enormous amount of work over the last few years, tracking what 108 spiritual visionaries and have been saying. And he gave them the names and their narratives. And he said 44 of them have now pulled the timing back from this shift being in 2032 back to beginning in 2025. So we are in this process now. And I think more and more of us can feel this increased psychic sensitivity, this greater telepathy, empathy, greater healing ability. More and more just regular people are starting to feel this. And so it's starting to happen. We're losing density, we're shifting more into the light body. And there's so many indications of this, but also what is helping us is the extraordinary level of solar activity we've got
Yeah.
right now. I mean, it's just huge, because not only are we in the peak of solar cycle 25, which is going to go on through this year and next year for sure. But I was just listening to a video just before we hopped on that someone sent me from a geophysicist called Stephen Byrne, And he was talking about, the very rare situation we're in, because there was a very big solar storm, kind of May, June time. It was what's called a G5. And normally the Earth has two, what he calls radiation belts. That doubled into four radiation belts. So what is happening is, as a result of these very concentrated high-level solar storms and solar flares, all of these are pumping the Earth with more and more energy, electromagnetic energy, pumping the Earth and us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
us. So we're getting, all of these physical effects of headaches and, chronic fatigue and insomnia and all of the aches and pains, etc. None of us escape, I'm sure. But it's also like the Earth, because the Earth, as we know, is leading this evolution. But
Yes.
it's happening, the evolution is happening through our physical bodies as well. We're going with the Earth. And so we're getting to pretty rare situations where something has to shift within the Earth, because it's holding more and more electromagnetic energy. So we're in a very unusual phase in literal cosmic energy ways, as well as all the psychic sensitivity that people can, the woo woo and the science.
Yes, that I feel like woo woo and science are they just more and more and more. There was, and I even get comments once in a while on my channel from scientists who are like, "This is exactly supported." A physicist the other day was commenting about the double particle experiment. The one where it's like if once you observe it, it collapses into reality. That idea. And the message I had given was all about how we are creating through observation. And so, yeah, I mean, it is just another way I mean, I call it the truthiness that we have all these different ways to come get to the truthiness, but it's at the end of the day. And the challenge, I think, as you and I know, is that often on the path to the truth, we get all kinds of human stuff mixed up in there. You know what I mean? We get, there's lots of pathways where there's many side roads, we'll call them. But there's fundamental pieces, like in every belief system, religion, science, all of it, that brings you back to this core understanding. I was watching this fascinating thing the other day you probably have heard of Graham. What is his last name? Graham. He's the guy who's really big on tracing old.
Oh,
Yes,
Hancock.
thank you, Graham Hancock. And I did not know why there are snakes in all of the old, like when we look at old, Egyptian stuff and Aztec stuff, and there's always snakes. And he says they're comets. Comets come, and there was one big cataclysm in like the 1200, 1200 or 12,000 years ago. And but the amazing thing is, talk about truthiness, is that once he starts connecting all these threads together from all, it paints this like incredible picture that it's hard to not see it, and the truthiness is right there. It's amazing. But I feel like that's the case about where we are right now, is and yeah, I think we are headed into, like I had a dream about it the other night, where in the dream I was in 3D reality and I was doing 3D reality things, which is I was trying to solve a problem. And I had like three options I could go through, but all of them had limitations. I could go kind of this way or this way, but they all had compromises. And then all of a sudden I kind of looked over here and I almost kind of blurred into the new reality. And it was almost literally like I was like just kind of pulled into and then I was in the new reality. And I realized there are no compromises. Like it was literally like the biggest feeling I had was that everything was easy. And it was that close. It was literally like whoosh, and then you were just in it. So and I know like the angels have described a much more intensive process for us to get there. Like it's kind of but it's that close. Yeah. And if I'm having dreams about it, it's coming.
I mean, it's just wonderful, because it does seem to be getting closer and closer. And what people are reporting, even from my simple 15-minute meditations on a Sunday,
Yeah.
people having extraordinary experiences. Well, hundreds of benevolent galactics coming in to support us and cheering us on. And, it's just amazing. But going back to Graham Hancock, he's a wonderful scholar and has written some brilliant best-selling books. And yes, he talks about this cataclysm 12,000 years ago. Well, every 12,000 years, give or take 500, we go through the photon belt. And that's what
Oh.
the Earth's solar system is doing right now. So we're coming
Oh.
into this, again, very intense period of transformation. But as I understand it, this is a unique period in human history where we are going to ascend in physicality, which
Yes.
has never happened before. And it's happening so darn quickly with no rehearsal.
Yes.
That's why, we're kind of hanging on, you know, riding the waves, but
Yeah.
it is creating a lot of intensity, but it's also very exciting. As long as we can lock on to love in our vision,
Yes.
lock on to that very, very positive, amazing, exciting timeline of love, joy, gratitude, compassion, and not kind of almost keep your spiritual blinkers on, so you're not going into fear and anger and, you know, angst, the whole thing, because that will, you know, that will help you give life support to
Yes.
the old system which has died.
Yes.
Got to
Yeah.
keep locked on to what we're creating, because it's so much better. You know, why wouldn't you want that?
I so agree. And so, okay, so that idea of this is being birthed from inside of us is there's a, like the angels gave us a whole series of messages describing what that is and they told us what it's going to feel like and how the angels will see it and basically how we're meant to navigate that process. I'm not sure if I know you've seen many of my messages. I don't know if you've seen those, but they are, it's amazing because it's literally like a guidebook of like, and then one of the big things is, when this comes, when we have this darkness, we're going to be going in this process, it will be unmistakable, is that our bodies will feel heavy. And that heaviness is the process of us separating from our karma. And we're meant to lay down and just rest and just let it happen. And the angels have incarnated, and this is crazy. So many angels are incarnated here on the planet. We can't see them because they're a higher vibration. But I know they're here because I had a dream that I gave birth to one, which is crazy. Yeah. In my dream, I'm sitting on a picnic table and I am with a woman and she says, "Oh, you're about to give birth. I'll go and get the materials." And I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm pregnant. Okay." You know how dreams are. I go, "Okay." And then all of a sudden she's coming out and I feel her coming out and I reach down and I pull up and as she comes out of me, she turns into a toddler and I lift her up and she's an angel and she's kind of the way that angels look sometimes, that they look kind of like geometric. And I pull her up and she puts her little arms up. She goes, "Yay, I'm here." That's the whole dream.
Oh, amazing. So
Yeah.
this really is a kind of rebirth, isn't it? At a very different level.
Well,
To
this is the angels coming through to guide us through this shift. So they are going to be the ones that hold us in this kind of cocoon state that help us to move into the higher state, because the new state of consciousness. So we were born with this second higher state inside of us, and that has to emerge. But the thing that you were saying, so and basically it's like a blooming from the inside. And it's to us, it'll be just like you know how sometimes you can move from lower states to higher states normally. It's just we're going to move to a higher state than we normally see. So we can all be the person who's had a really bad day, who's grumpy, and the person who just feels incredibly magnanimous and happy. But just imagine that times 10, or who knows. But the thing you said that really got me thinking is this idea that we're not meant to look back. We're not meant to, and think about that in all of the religions. Like the story, there's some story, I think I know it's in the Bible, about the pillar of salt, a woman that turns into a pillar of salt. Do you know that?
Lot's wife. Yeah, Lot's wife, because she turned back and
Yes.
she turned into a pillar of salt. Yeah, it's a biblical story. Yeah,
Yeah.
allegory. Yeah.
And I think that's not the only one. That not the only religion that has the story about don't turn around, don't look back. And I know that there are many near-death experiencers who talk about once they're going somewhere, they're in something, but the minute they turn back and look back, it stops. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I've heard several people say that. So, you know, we just have to have complete trust and love.
Yes.
Where we are going is, you know, as I said in a recent video, it is a complete metamorphosis. And
Yes.
I do think, and I've said it in several videos in the past, I do think the past will just go to dust.
Yes.
We'll barely remember, and already it's feeling like such old energy. When I'm doing my astrology updates, I'm feeling more drawn to the dwarf planets, which promise us a whole paradigm shift, rather than the planets I've been working with as my bread and butter or my career. It feels old, and I know, at least I feel in my bones, that there's going to be this massive paradigm shift that will change everything we know about the cosmos, about science, and you know, biology and everything. So I might have to put many decades of study down and say, okay, you know, I've got to I've got to start again.
Well,
I
this was my
truly
question
feel
for you. I'm so glad you brought it up. But yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but yes, I want to know about this. Like how, and I have to say, before we lose the other topic, I have to say the main reason I brought that up is the idea that our awareness creates. And if the reason why I think that all those stories are in religion is if we are focused on the old, we are just like you said, we are feeding the old. Our awareness is what's creating the new reality, which is why I think all those stories are in the different religious texts saying, create the new, focus on the new. But so how do you think, given where we're going, how will astrology change? Like, are the meaning of the planets going to change? What do you think?
well, gosh, I mean, in short, I don't know. In short,
Okay.
I don't know because it's kind of way out there, but I do honestly feel that it's almost like, dare I say, that we've all been for many lifetimes living in a kind of hologram, and that's defined our reality. But now there's going to be such a shift beyond that hologram.
Yeah.
It's going to open up such a degree of multidimensionality that we've never known before. We're
Yeah.
going to be like children,
Yes.
discovering a whole new thing, and the past will just fade. All we knew about history and science and the cosmos, it's just old stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason I say that is the last main cycle that Pluto was in Aquarius, which was from 1777 to 1798. Not only was that very revolutionary energy with the French Revolution, American Revolution, but that was when Copernicus published his heliocentric theory that the Earth went round the sun and not the other way around. And the average bloke in the street said, "You've got to be kidding. I watched the sun come up in the east and set in the way. You've got to be joking." So that was a shattering paradigm shift for humanity.
Oh, wow.
Because Pluto is just moving back finally into Aquarius on the 19th of November for 20 years, we are going to have at least one, if not more, of those big paradigm shifts, going beyond what I think is the current hologram that we've all lived in and understood this is how life works. And what's leading me as well is the dwarf planets. And, I'm just taking three of them really, Pluto, Haumea, and Sedna, that I talked about in a video
Yes.
recently, Metamorphosis for Humanity, question mark. They are describing not just a transformation, but a complete metamorphosis, a change of state. So
Wow.
it's not a linear, predictable transformation that maybe we've known in the past, you're a baby and you'll grow into an adult. It's a complete change of state.
Wow.
And that's what's exciting, that we are moving into, the big question as we move into the next 3 years is, what does it truly mean to be human?
Yes. Yes.
And what is our real spiritual sense in a way that we've never known it before? And that's going to include multidimensionality, it's going to include much greater healing ability, and a kind of morphing with everything that is, and a morphing and a connection with the earth in a way that we haven't had, since
Yes.
Lemurian times. And some
Yes.
amazing developments are happening very quietly around the new sciences, around free energy. It's sort of building on the work of Tesla and Steiner
Yeah.
that I think are going to change our world
Yeah.
really radically. And they're happening already. They're happening. I know they are
So,
because I'm talking to people about it. So that gets super exciting in the way everything works in this world
oh,
that's
so
harmonious with the earth.
when are the three of those, Hermea, when are those like what is the period of that most active?
Yeah, okay, it's active already, it's
Okay.
operational already. It
Okay.
really locks into exactitude through 2025 and most of 2026.
Wow.
And then it starts to, it's like a wonky triangle because it
Okay.
isn't equilateral. One side is 120 degrees, the other side is 90 degrees, the other side is 150 degrees. So it's like
Okay.
a wonky triangle. But whenever these outer planets, any planets, but particularly the outer planets, come into specific geometries, they're activated. So it already operational, very strong through 25 and 26, and then starting to ease off in 27, particularly the second half of 27. The geometry is breaking up because
Okay.
Pluto moves faster than Haumea, which moves faster. Pluto's got a 248-year orbit. Haumea's around a 283-year orbit. Sedna is in around 11,400-year orbit. So she's going to stay in the same place for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, whereas the other guys, Pluto and
I
Haumea,
gotta
are
move
going
on.
to move
Okay.
on. Pluto's about death, transformation, and rebirth. Haumea is about regeneration, birthing babies all over her body, changing state to some extent. Sedna, the myth of Sedna, is totally about changing your state of being physically.
Because that's the one you said her fingers get chopped off by her dad on the canoe, and then they become dolphins and sea creatures, and which is like that's like terrible beginning but beautiful ending. So
Yeah,
total like
common
yeah,
story. Yeah,
yeah,
Dad did not come well out of that, betrayal by the Pedro. But then if you think of dolphins and whales, they are super high frequency. They're
yeah,
kind of the 15th dimensional, as I understand, and they are helping to keep the frequency of humanity up
yeah.
to help to lead into this new Earth as well.
Wow. 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 So, okay. So that, and that timeline, I think that fit because so the way I've been thinking about it, the angels haven't given us specific dates. They don't because they exist outside of time, but they frequently refer to sequences of things. And they'll say this happens before that, or this then happens in the middle of this. And after, because, I've been working on this book, which is going to be ready probably in a week, but yes, thank you. But the in it, I've been putting things together and getting a much crisper understanding. It's just even for me, it's helped in terms of getting the understanding. But they have said like and if I just look at the series of things that are yet to unfold, and I kind of do a little timeline and say that kind of puts us at like second half of 2026. Like we still have lots of, and like it's not a great thing. There's a lot of stuff we have to get through. Like it's not going to be an easy year and a half to 2 years. It's going to be challenging. But they've also said that during that period, that yeah, you can be right in the midst of all of it, but it's that thing of where are you directing your awareness, that you can create. They said we can thrive even in the midst of the chaos, and that so it's like when people start to freak out about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, that we are still able to create a reality. And even more so because like you said, we are already rising, we're already being bombarded with these positive energies that are helping to uplift us. But I feel like there's some heavy stuff coming this fall, and that I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on the economy in the US, which I think will then, and there's stuff around like these, the angels, like it was crazy. Like maybe 4 years ago, I got a message about the death of a leader who sounds a whole lot like Trump. And I don't like to put that on anybody. And it may be that he has moved, but now like 3 assassination attempts, but they didn't say it was an assassination. They said he dies in a night and on the way to the hospital. But they said because of the person who he is, that it would create a massive it would one more huge wedge, and it would create civil unrest, and we would go into the election with chaos. It would not be what we thought it would be, and it would be a major part of, and then the states would start to secede. In the US, it's like it's not a civil war. They said it's not fighting, it's a gradual pulling apart of the country where the different states just like, I'm not going to play anymore. But then that opens this, all of this happens. We have economy, we have political, all of this has to happen still. If this is all still going to happen, energies change. We don't know. And this was like 4 years ago, I got some of these messages. So things can change. And I hope for Trump's sake that it does. But, and who knows, like maybe the fact that he got shot at, maybe that was the energy and it dissipated. So I hope for his sake that that's the case. But then it's like they have a whole series of messages about opening war, which I see that is 2025-ish. And then somewhere in there, giant earth rift as well, which is major cataclysmic event, and all of these things. And then finally the flash of light. And these events serve to then finally have everybody kind of stop what they're doing, and we are able to then move into world peace. So that's kind of the sequence, of things. It's kind of goes like there's these kind of crazy things that the earth rift, the political stuff, the economy, and then war, and then the top layer is the flash of light. How does that fit with
Yeah,
your
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I sent a couple of videos, and I may have even shared it with you, Anne, that going into the election, I mean, from now, we've got a full supermoon today. It's amazing the
happy
internet's up.
supermoon?
Let's keep our fingers crossed. But anyway, but we've got this Mars-Pluto opposition, which is extreme brute force, and it's terrific if you've got it in your own chart because it gives focus and willpower, and you can kind of just keep going to get a project finished. But on the global stage, it's very explosive and eruptive and extreme force. Now, we had that October the 7th last year when Hamas attacked Israel, for instance. It's that kind of force. Now, that is exact on the 3rd and 4th of November.
Okay.
Exact. The
Wow.
days exactly running into the election, which is part of the reason I was saying
Wow.
I don't know if there's going to be some extreme event, whether it's an assassination attempt, whether it's something on US soil. I never see the event. I'm not gifted like you, so I don't see the event. I'm just looking at the astrology. But that could knock the election out, or if it does happen, there's going to be a lot of toing and froing about the result, because Mars then goes retrograde on the 6th of December, and it doesn't really come out of that whole phase until April. If there is an election, I think there's going to be a lot of toing and froing, and who
Yeah.
won, and pointy fingers, and was it all right, and transmit, blah,
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. And certainly the economy, because Pluto's in its final few dregs of the last few degrees of Capricorn until the 19th of November.
Okay.
When it entered Capricorn in 2008, we had the financial crisis.
Okay.
And that's never really been fully settled in terms of, do we have a clean, honest, healthy
Yes.
system? So
Yes.
we don't have very long at all to go with that. But so there's some very volatile energies moving around, and it's very interesting. I think they are going to be, because Neptune is at the final degree of Pisces for a lot of next year. That's about more flooding. Uranus is at the final degrees of Taurus for a lot of next year, particularly the first half. That's about eruptive events. And because I've just listened to this geophysicist talking about the Earth being pumped with, all of this solar energy, it could kind of happen at any time. I do think we're going to have a lot more seismic activity. It's interesting because I've heard you say that you also think there's going to be some spat between China and Taiwan.
Yes, they were very clear on that. They said that when the US has their eye off the ball, when we are basically dealing with our own problems, that opens the door for China, who then asserts control over Taiwan. And then Japan rallies the rest of the world in defense of Taiwan, and that opens up the field of war.
Well,
Yeah.
that is very interesting, because I've got two people I sort of correspond with who are extremely evolved people. They've both said that they've been told by their guides, and fair dues, this is channeling, not science, as we know.
Exactly. Yeah. And things
I've great
change, and
respect.
we make space for
I have
right.
great respect for channels, as you know, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. But they told clearly and repeatedly by their guides that they are in the first wave of ascension in late March 2025. And one of them has said that certain things have to happen, that a leader will pass, just like
Okay.
you, and that the China Taiwan thing will kick off. And
Oh.
then after that, bigger Earth events will start to occur.
Oh my gosh. I see, this is truthiness. We're talking about the truth. It's everybody, all the arrows are pointing at the same stuff. It's amazing to me. And I recognize, like, so one of the things I've seen with the angels when they talk about stuff is they do name energies. So they'll talk about, sometimes they'll name something. And I think sometimes they'll give us things like so specific and random, and then it comes true, but it's like a breadcrumb, because it'll occur in 5 places in the world. It'll be like they'll talk about payment processing, and it's like, seems so random. Like, why are the angels talking to me about payment processing? Like, what? But then it becomes like the thing that sets off the devaluation of the US dollar and the loss of the US hegemony in the world, because of the fact that we use payment processing as the way to sanction Russia, right? That we prevented them from using the SWIFT banking system. So it was payment processing started it all. Right. And I think that payment processing may be an energy again that crops up with the US economy when it fails. So it's an energy. So it kind of like, it's the same thing like the truck drivers. They talked about, and I was like, why are you talking about truck? But then truck drivers became a thing for like a year and a half. Everybody was talking about truck drivers. So, and they were a huge role in what happened with COVID and the supply chain. So there's these weird little energies that they name that kind of spurt here and here.
I think these extreme Earth events, extreme weather events, are
Yes.
bringing people together as one humanity.
That is the goal, right? I mean, that is and they've said, and I did want to mention it because my thought came back as you were speaking, they said that the Earth rift would happen in the midst of, like, at the sort of the peak chaos of like economy, politics in the US, all of this, that the Earth rift is going to be somewhere potentially. And it seems like that matches with what you're saying with Taurus, with Uranus leaving Taurus, or is it Uranus leaving Taurus? Is that the
Yeah.
one? Or
Uranus leaves Taurus briefly to go into Gemini in July next
okay,
year,
okay,
comes back into Taurus at the end of the year, and then moves out fully, I think it's April 2026, into Gemini.
got it.
So
Okay,
for me, the major Earth change, because Taurus is fixed Earth,
yeah,
and Uranus is the planet to do with earthquakes and volcanoes.
yes,
So to me, those big, together with Neptune at the end of Pisces, flooding, to me, those big seismic events have to happen before we move into summer of 2026.
yeah.
That's what I'm seeing astrologically.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So that, I mean, so I think it definitely fits beautifully with kind of, I mean, and I shouldn't say beautifully when we're talking about these incredible disasters, but like you were saying, the point of all of this is to get us to a place of global peace and to get us to a place, I mean, like it's, and then whenever I talk about that, like how is it even with all of these, we've had war for, for centuries. How is it now supposed to bring us to global peace? It's because through this process, we change and we attain a higher state of consciousness. And we have this sixth sense that allows us to feel each other's feelings. And you don't want to have war with yourself. So it's, yeah, so we that opens that up. But yeah, and but it is super interesting to me to see the different, all of us pointing at the same, and seeing how what you're saying in terms of the timelines, how it lines up with, and that's just me looking at the sequences as they've laid them out, as a, and then seeing how that overlaps with, okay, if this is going to happen now, that's got to lead us to here in order to get to the flash of light. But your thought about there is going to be waves, I will tell you, I've had another dream where in the dream I'm on the other side and I'm turning around and I'm reaching back to pull through one of my friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm a prophetic dreamer. I have a lot of prophetic dreams. And so, but yeah, so I'm dreaming about it a lot. I'm dreaming about this shift a lot. I'm dreaming about, so it's, yeah, I feel like it's imminent. I feel like it's going to be, and in these dreams, I'm not old. Like I'm about my age in my dreams. It's not like I'm seeing myself in 20 years doing it. I said, I shouldn't say I'm not old. I'm not older than I already am.
That's really, because the other thing I should say is, there's so much kind of in my head with this right now. All you're saying about the economy, I think will happen because the US is going through its Pluto return that I've done to death. I've talked about that for so long, but it's in the second house of the
Yes.
US chart, and that's to do with
Yeah.
the country's economy, money, currency, da da da. And because America leads the world, that's going to have ripples across the world. I think that side of it is to lead us to a point of we will have a completely different kind of economy, or possibly even in the future, no money, because we're able
Yes.
to manifest things. But the other big astrological times are, there's a very important aspect between Saturn and Neptune, and they come together as a conjunction every 36 years, but they are doing it at 0 degrees of Aries starting next year. And that's like the creator degree. It's the very first degree of the zodiac. And I don't know when in history they've done that before. They've had the conjunction
And
lots of degrees in
which
time,
two
but not.
planets? Which
So
ones?
Saturn and
Okay.
Neptune.
Got it. Okay.
And they start doing that exactly to the degree in July next summer. And then they get to the degree and minute in February 2026. And to me, that is a whole new episode for humanity. It's making real the dream.
Oh, oh
Making
my
real the dream.
gosh.
It's the spiritual, it's a new episode in defining the spiritual self.
There's
And
so much support for this in like, and I mean, it's like, and this is the part that blows my mind is like I said, I would have thought, yeah, we're going to go through a heightened state of consciousness, but I would have ratcheted it down to be like, oh, it's just going to be like everybody's having a really good day every day, parking spots for everyone, but now I'm like, no, it's going to be like literally some of the stuff the angels have talked about is hard for me to wrap my head around, stuff about how we will be able to create what we need when we need it, and that it will come to us. It's almost like things just align. The world just gravitates where things flow, and you're living on the edge of this wave, and life is coming up to meet you, and you're living in the present moment all the time. Our whole thought process changes where we're not thinking about what we're going to say or thinking about what we did say, where we're literally feeling and experiencing every moment with our full amount of consciousness. Like so much more of our consciousness comes into our bodies. and we exist in a really, and it's, but what that, the repercussions of that, you know, are enormous. Where we, and here's a cool one. They said just recently, they said that we will be, like our goal is to then, in this new reality, our goal is not going to be learning about ourselves in the way that we have been doing. Like what we have been is in this karmic cycle where the point is we're projecting ourselves out into our reality, seeing ourselves and trying to understand who we are by, it's like watching ourselves on the movie of life, you know, and trying to then have the physical experience of emotions to learn about ourselves. This has been the cycle we've been in, is this karmic experience. In the new reality, the goal is not so much to learn about ourselves in that way. It is to learn about ourselves as creators, and
Yeah.
it will be a thing where we create, and it's so then the next question is, if we can create anything we want, will we all just, you know, everybody's going to be driving around in sports cars? It's like, and that's going to be bad for the planet. No, it's not that, because we change, and this touches on what you were saying. We change, and we tune into, when we create, we tune into what everybody wants and the earth wants. And we then figure out how we can create, we can bring that into form. How can we bring into form what will serve the all? And we, and that to me is an incredible, like, I just, even as I say it, I get excited, you know?
100%, and 100%. And I'm sure you do this too, but for every important conversation, video, whatever, I always say, let this be for my highest good, the highest good of all, and the highest good of the earth. And we're going to move in business from it all being about profit to it being about people and the earth, in harmony with the earth. And more people are talking about this. I listened to a very wise and amazing lady called Helena. I can't remember her surname, but she entitled the video Ancient Futures.
Oh,
Go back to the ancient wisdom that we had in these times where we were truly in harmony with the earth, with shamanic skills and abilities. But now we have made this paradigm shift to really understanding how we manifest. So
mm,
living in a situation of consciousness, an expanded consciousness of not only multidimensionality, but oneness.
yeah.
It's a unity consciousness. And Haumea, as part of that triangle of dwarf planets I was talking about, she represents unity consciousness.
Wow.
She's what's being activated in this geometry right now.
And Humea is the one that represents unity consciousness?
Yes, and I must credit Alan Clay, who runs Dwarf Planet University. He came up with that definition that she's the
Wow.
higher octave of Neptune, and he calls her a representative of unity consciousness. So, as you
Wow.
say, there'll be no war. We'd never want to harm. There's been no hunger. We share our food. We will treat everybody and every living being as if they were us. So there's going to be such a shift. And I think we have to go to extremes to see the awfulness. I mean, you and I may say, what are we still doing these wars? It's kind of bonkers, and lots of people are saying that. But I think it has to be taken almost to extremes to
Yeah.
get more people to say, this is not working.
Wow.
And it's the vast population of the world that don't want these wars. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
way our socio-political structure is set up currently, that's why we end up in them. That's going to change big
Yeah.
time, with Pluto and Aquarius, big time.
That is so amazing. It's sorry, it's just as you were saying that, and the idea that Humea is the higher octave of
Neptune.
Neptune. And as we were heading into this entire, so many years ago, I had multiple experiences with Poseidon, which is Neptune, right? Poseidon is Neptune,
Yes,
isn't that right? And
yes,
I
yes.
had these crazy experiences with Poseidon where every time I would go in to meditate, he would show up. And not every time. It happened like a couple of times, but each time he showed up, I would then go into my world, and there would be it would be like he would show up in the beginning of my meditation. He'd be standing there with his trident, and then I would go meet a friend for lunch. On the side of the building, 2 stories high, was a painting of him holding the trident. And yeah, and then another time I'm meditating, and he shows up and he's holding the trident and a conch shell. And then the meditation goes on from there. And I'm like, that's a mind blur. Like, where did that come? And then later that day, I'm wandering around the UCSD campus trying to find the place to mail back an Amazon package. I'm carrying this huge box for like a half hour. I'm totally lost. And finally, I find the entrance to the correct building, and in front is a 10-foot tall of Poseidon, statue holding the trident and the conch shell. And so there was this thing like, what is my connection to Poseidon? And then, but to know that he is then the connected to Humea,
Yeah.
then I also had a vision where babies were coming out of my whole body, out of my feet,
Yeah.
babies. Yeah,
So
Humea, which you were just saying is Humea. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think this is like it's it's a gesture or reference to the times that we are in, you know, that it is that it is, this is we are birthing a new reality, birthing a new time. So anyways, I'm just in my brain making these connections going between these various kind of what seemed like, oh, that's bizarre, but no, absolutely fitting given what you're saying. And how long has Humea been activated or in this position?
It's really just started this year that she's started to come into this geometry, and it's not exact until next year. But you know, the amazing thing, Anne, is also that the dwarf planets, which are way out beyond the orbit of Pluto, largely, were only starting to be discovered round about the year 2000, give or take a few years. So
Okay.
that's, and you know, people may say, well, that's 24 years ago, but that's like nothing in astrology that's been going for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So they are only discovered, I believe, when our consciousness is ready to integrate them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you know, they may seem very abstract right now, but then they're not, because I was just yesterday, in fact, and it may be interesting for you to listen to as well. Somebody sent me a video of Robert Edward Grant, who's a brilliant mathematician, polymath, very clever chap, very spiritual guy. And he has worked out the geometry of the next octave jump with DNA.
Oh
He's
my God.
worked out the geometry of how that may be done. And you know, I've just actually filmed my new moon in Scorpio update, and I'll put the video below that. But clever people, very clever people like him, are working on the science of this evolutionary leap as well, because he
Wow.
is, as I say, super spiritual guy as well. So that's where it starts to get exciting. You're having
Yeah.
your prophetic dreams and visions, and I'm looking at the astrology, but there are other people who are actually seeing the science to click into all of this to make it manifest in the world. So, you know, it may seem like a lump of rock out there that feels very abstract. You know, how does that
Yeah.
work in my life? But we start to experience it. We start to
That makes
experience
so
it.
much sense to me. Going back to our question about how will astrology change, is that we will probably see or become aware of new planets that represent this higher state of being. And it makes extra sense to me that it's not like the old planets disappear, because it's a foundational, we build, right? We add, we don't delete, we do, but then those outer planets may become that much more potent and important. It's kind of like the way the angels described when we get our heightened sixth sense. It's not that we lose the five senses, they're still there. It's just that they give us so much less information than our new sixth sense. So we will still be able to smell, touch, taste, but we will get the bulk of our understanding from our sixth sense. Yeah. And I imagine it'll be like that with the planets, that there'll be some new fabulous planet that, yeah. So maybe I wonder what it'll be.
I think more and more, because you know, as we get stronger telescopes, and also
Yeah.
people, because what I think planets are, and I'm going a bit out on a limb here, but I think they're probability waves of consciousness.
Yeah.
Probability waves of consciousness that all have their same resonance or pitch or tune. And our birth chart is, as Pythagoras used to say, a harmony of the spheres of our particular note,
Oh,
of our
that's awesome.
symphony for this life.
Beautiful.
And we can make a pig's ear in playing that symphony, or we can make it magnificent in the world. And I think what's important to say, and I know you're super positive in all of your videos as well, but I think what's important to say as we go through these big times of big weather
Yes.
and big earth changes is the best thing you can possibly do
Yeah.
is stay in love, stay in peace, stay in compassion and gratitude, and drop into stillness. Drop
Yes.
into stillness. Because I do have a sense that to some degree we will bubble wrap ourselves
Yeah.
from the worst excesses of what's going on, and certainly we won't be feeding the worst excesses of
Yes.
war and death and misery. You know, we'll be helping the collective to see it from a higher point of view. So
Yes.
those simple things, I think, are the best way we can prepare, the best things we can do without making it complicated.
I absolutely 100% agree. And that is at the end of the day, like if I go through the common thread of all the messages I've gotten, it is all about leaning into the new. And they describe it as, and they've said that it's like the phoenix rising, but they said out of every moment, in the moment of destruction, there is rebirth. And they said, process your grief, feel the feelings about witness what is leaving, and then focus on find the new. And I think in many cases, the new will be like what you're describing about people coming together and helping one another and finding community and realizing they didn't need what was lost after all. That, you know what I mean? It's becoming a new society, and it's putting our energy and our focus on that, and letting, and wherever we direct our focus, right? If we can focus on the things that just got lost, right? We can focus on the sadness. And they said, it's not that we're meant to just shove it down. We're meant to process it and witness, but then lean hard into what is new and what is growth. And they're really, anything that is fear-based, that is fear causing, it's like pull down the shades, close the doors, just don't give it any of your awareness. Be aware of how powerfully creative our awareness is. Where we're directing our focus, that's what we're creating. Yeah. So and I know you are already like, so where you live, you're part of a community that's like a local community. What is that like? Is it a movement in the UK, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a global movement actually,
Oh,
which was begun at the beginning of 2020 by a chap whose name I forget in Australia. And he just had this idea of stand in the park groups. And he said, just turn up at local locations that, you can just self-nominate yourself to turn up at this local location. It could be in a park or under a tree or wherever on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for free, and assemble with other like-minded people. And that time, 2020 and onwards, was so tough for all of us, and
gosh, yeah.
particularly if you lived alone. It was so tough. So these are all over the world. These are
Ah,
all over the world. So you can go onto the Stand in the Park website or the Facebook page it's got locations on both of them. And each of those groups are defined obviously by the individuals that make them up. But generally they are extremely solution focused and creative, and we come together like a family of frequency. So I don't live in a community at all, but my group meets under a kind of 1,000-year-old oak tree about 20 minutes from where I am, through the forest. I live in a beautiful 150 square miles of forest here,
oh, how
and we meet.
nice.
So much has come from that, I can't tell you the amount of
Wow.
information, because we link with other groups who have got more information on all kinds of things, preserving food and all kinds of things. But we've come together very strongly, and there are lots of mini groups that have broken from that into healing groups and dowsing groups and walking groups and gardening groups, grow your own food in the garden. So all kinds of stuff has blossomed, but essentially there's a hardcore to that group. So it's not a living group. I know many people across the world are buying land and growing food and actually moving in to live in community.
Yeah.
That's going to happen more and more for sure.
Yes.
At
Yeah.
least if you can connect online, but even better physically, with
Yeah.
like-minded people, that is a fantastic buffer to
Yes.
what's going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important, I think, to find your soul tribe.
It's huge. And that I think is what we're meant to be doing. So that was like one of the biggest pieces of advice that the angels gave in terms of like, because there's a lot of suggestions that they would say about how are you going to thrive during the changes ahead. Because we like, yes, the flash of light is coming, and yes, and then we're gonna be in this amazing state where we can just be in flow with life and we don't have to do paperwork anymore. But before we get there, we have to go through a lot of chaos. So how do we weather that? And one of the biggest thing they said that is free to everybody is begin now to find your community. And that can just mean like, what is it that you use on a daily basis? Can you find it locally? Like, who are the people around you? What are the businesses around you? Who's, for example, maybe you don't have land to grow a garden, but maybe you know somebody who has a garden who would love some help, and you could volunteer. Maybe you're not in a physical state to do that, but maybe they've got children you could volunteer to watch. You know what I mean? What can or maybe you have tools you could lend out, or maybe you have, maybe you know how to sew, and you know what I mean? Like, or you could learn things like how maybe you start to learn about herbal remedies. You learn about like, what are the things that you could bring one of these don't cost anything. And I think those who do have resources that are able to afford it, then yes, please do double down on figure out how to grow a little food, and especially crops that thrive well in colder temperatures. Have a way to purify water, have a way, you know what I mean? Things like this will help other people. So
100%, and I really agree. And really, everybody in the group I'm involved in is doing something like that.
yeah,
Every
I love
single
it.
one. There's one chap who's gone all over the area and found local springs, where you can take
Yes.
your camping bottle to, if the water supply becomes a bit, derailed for whatever reason. So, everybody is doing something to say, okay, how can we pull together? What's
Yes.
my part in this to
Yeah.
create new earth? And it's thrilling. And it's all for free, as you say. Nobody's
Yeah.
paying each other to do
Yeah.
this. It's
So
all for free.
I
So
have
it's
a friend, Rebecca, who and she's there like on every one of my Friday lives. She's always there. She's awesome, and she's up to some interesting work where her group it's all about reciprocity, and they're creating a model of exchange where it's been extremely well received in communities that have been hit by hardship. One form, it could be economic hardship or it could be disaster, either one. And she's got projects going on in the American South and in Portugal, and some other places and the model is that they will network together, say, for example, 5 different communities that are not, are not next to each other, and figure out if this community needs something and the other one has it, how do they create a system of equity so that they can have reciprocity? It's not quite bartering. It's more like, how do we assign an energy a transfer where this person needs a hot water tank and this person has an extra one, and they get their needs met in this way. And so it's very interesting, but she's actually programmatizing this and offering it in communities and in governments. And so, yeah, it's very, very interesting.
That's really exciting. It's almost in a simple way, like going back to the old war days,
Yeah.
rationing their
Yeah.
community all together, and but in a much more evolved way. And I think it's fabulous. But like the Aquarius energy, Pluto about to move into Aquarius for 20 years, Aquarius energy is all about kind of networks, mycelium, tree roots. It's information networks that, as long as we have the internet, we can share a lot of incredibly powerful information. So we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel in each separate group.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's very exciting. But certainly the sharing of resources, the reciprocity, that's all going to be very big going forward. So there's less and less need for money in that situation because everybody's just happy to share their skills or
Yeah.
their vegetables or
Yeah.
whatever they
Yeah.
can offer.
And that
And
gets to the idea, what we were saying about if we turn back and try to hold on to what we had and turn into the pillar of salt, right? That if say, for example, you spent all your life trying to save up and you have your little, your 401k, and it's like, is it enough? And is it enough? And then what if the economy falls and you lose it? And that is definitely something you're going to turn around and look at, and you're going to have to process a lot of grief over that. But what if the phoenix that rises out of that is the realization that your needs are going to be met anyways? And that you're not dependent on that, right? That you never needed it to begin with, that things are going to evolve in such a way. And I do believe we will go through like the angels actually came through one time out of the blue and told me that, and I was never into crypto in any way. I wasn't following it or interested in it. And out of the blue, they came through and said we would have an electronic currency. And they asked me to use it as soon as it was available because they said it would help me to work with people all over the world. But so anyway, so there will be at least an interim period where we do go to an electron. I believe what will happen, and this is so the angels talking about that, and then I had a dream about it the other night that it is an interesting dream where some people were trying to use the new currency. So I think this is coming relatively quick, and I think it could be tied to the economic fall. I think that there could be a thing where the bank said angels said the banks will close in the US. And I think there may be some story about why that happens. But I think there would be that within that, there will be potentially the motivation might be to get us all onto a digital currency.
yeah,
So it's a complicated story. But anyways, I think that's coming. And then down the road, like once we move to this higher state of consciousness, when we can manifest anything, you don't actually really need money in that situation.
interesting. Because of digitization, and Taurus is money. So that's another signal for a shift to digital currencies. Uranus stays in Taurus until July next year, shifts out, moves back in at the end of the year, and then fully out of Taurus by, I think it's April 26th. So over that period of time, for sure, we'll see. Well, we know, governments are working on this right now. Aquarian energy is decentralized.
Yes.
So I think it's really important as you
Yeah.
make your choices to make sure that you have a form of decentralized currency,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
entirely up to everybody's choice. But obviously there are moves to make it more centralized, and that's old Capricorn energy. That's
It
not
makes so
Aquarian
much
energy.
sense. And I bring that up knowing full well that it's extremely controversial because of the loss of privacy and things like that. So I'm aware of all sides. I'm just kind of taking my advice from the angels that they meant that for me. They didn't meant that to, and they're not saying everybody should do it. And the reasons for me to do it were very specific to what I'm doing to my work. But I thought, well, anybody else who wants to hear it, there it is. They said it's coming. And yeah, but yeah, I think it will be in the long run. And yeah, I agree with you. You want to have a way of participating in the system and not participating in the system when you choose to. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it will be very
And
interesting to see how it evolves.
I'm no financial expert at all, but I think something tangible as currency.
Mm-hmm.
Again, people have to make their own choices. I'm not an expert at all, but my sense is that something tangible would be useful too, like precious metals,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're able to sort of barter with that.
yeah.
Particularly silver coins that a gold coin, you couldn't pay for a loaf of bread with a gold coin.
That would be a lot of bread.
That'd be a lot of bread, wheelbarrows of bread, but silver coins become better for that kind of exchange. So
Yeah,
we're moving. We're gonna be much more light of foot, much more flexible, much more
yes.
adaptable as we move into these times because things are going to be changing quickly. So we're going to move much more from that kind of sense of permanency and density, and I'm going to stay in this home for life and job for life. We're moving into a really fast moving energy now, and that it will be exciting, and there'll be so many new ideas, and as you come together with people, you'll come together in teams to help them develop ideas as
Oh my
well.
gosh. So one of the things I have noticed in my life is that the like I love astrology, which is how I found you. But it really helps me to understand, like it gives me context for what's happening in my life, that I can see how, and I think of the energies of the planets like a breeze that's going through my life, and it's almost like here's a new breeze that's coming through, and I will then, how do I as a person interact with that breeze, and it helps me in some way to see myself or to grow or whatever. So, and sometimes it affects me more and sometimes less depending on how strongly it aspects me. Sometimes it's like my time to shine, like wow, you're going to get hit, by a 2x4 in this time period. And then there's like other ways I'm like, oh, it's more gentle, but 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 I really notice that it plays out accurately in my life. And but then I'm wondering, like, right now it's frequently about, for example, like things I'll need to see about myself or things I'll need to heal about myself. I'm always working on myself and healing. And this one that we just went through was a doozy for me. Holy cow, did I go through? And I thought, man, I've done so much work on this stuff because I've been working on myself for like forever. But there's always another layer, there's something else there. And I just went through a big one, which was amazing, amazing release. I wonder as we go into this new way of being, because like right now I see it tracking with, yes, it describes little things like even I just had this thing where my mind was aspected that there was the potential for like the eighth house manifestation of an unexpected money through my partner. And my partner literally just got like an unexpected tax refund. Like boom, it was exactly the way the astrology described it. But where do we go in the new world if we change, if all of this stuff is happening? And I love, love, love what you're describing about Humea and this trifecta and it literally is matching up exactly with what the angels have been telling us. But how then will daily astrology, like if we are in this new state of being, and we've left our karma behind, because that's what they say when we go through the flash of light, karma is left behind. We are living in an will we still, like, how will daily astrology guide us in that world? Because it won't be so much about excavating our deep wounds. We're going to be in this new creative space of like, how do I create what's in alignment with the all? How would
Yeah,
that play out, do you
I
think?
mean that's a really big question, but I think we'll be focused much less on those day-to-day unfoldings
Yeah.
because we'll just be in such flow, and our focus will be about connecting to our galactic family, the multidimensionality, the flow of the energies, flow with the cosmos in a
Yeah.
way. I mean, I think so often astrology, and I've banged the drum on this a lot, has felt very fated, that planets do
Mm.
things to you. And I feel very strongly that we are the co-creators, and I
Yes.
think if we go through this shift, we will move much more into a co-creation, flowing with the energy, particularly these different levels of consciousness that we will blend with. So it's going to be so much more of a blending, flowing sort
I
of
love that.
experience, rather than the day to day, you're going to have a row with your neighbor.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Yeah, which
and
is so 3D, isn't it? That is, you're right. That's a great point. Very good
you know,
point.
so,
Yeah.
so although it's been very accurate at the 3D level, I think particularly with Saturn in Pisces, I see that's the real shedding of karma. And again, Saturn moves fully out of Pisces in February 2026. With this new episode, I see that as just the end of the old fated, this is what will happen to you today. You'll have a row with your neighbor,
Yeah.
careful you're not in an accident,
Yes,
all
exactly.
of that, I don't fall down the stairs, or yeah,
Or your pipes are going to go bad, right?
all of that very literal 3D stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be way beyond that. And that's why for me, I'm actually just gonna, like the fool in the tarot, step off a cliff edge and say, okay, where do we go now?
Where do we go from here?
Nobody really knows. It's virgin ground, and because it's never been done before. And
Okay.
so there's no
Yeah.
rule book.
Have
The
you
best
looked
we can
ahead,
do.
like beyond 2030 and seen like what is out there beyond? I've never really heard any astrologers talk about beyond 2030. Like I'm sure there's, major things happening, but are you aware of any
The only
major stuff?
big thing, as the next 3 years are so huge, 25, 26, 27, because we've
Yeah.
also got another aspect that is already operational, but again becomes exact 25, 26, easing off in 27, is a very positive aspect, which we haven't had for 500 years. So
Oh.
you can add that into the mix. And beyond that, I mean, there's so many crocodiles to get through. I haven't looked much beyond 2027, but what I can say, in 2032, we have a very big conjunction between Saturn and Uranus, which is very important. So that's going to be a whole other level. This is just the beginning of this whole new rebirth of humanity. And these next 3 years are going to be the launch pad, as I
Okay.
see it. And then almost beyond that, it starts to get so abstract. We have to get through the next couple of years before I've got any sense of putting vocabulary to get to it, because we're going to be going so fast, and so
Yeah.
we do so much. It isn't like looking back where you can say, oh, I'm going to buy this house and I get a mortgage and then I'll have kids, and
Yes.
it's going to be so different, our
Yes.
experience. It's so fast moving that I think we've just got to get through the next couple of years before I can even imagine from the astrology, because new planets are going to be discovered as well.
Yeah, I think
Where we're
that's what
going to,
I was thinking of as you were saying it, is that even if we were to look that far ahead, the whole picture might change if all of a sudden we discover a bunch of new planets,
yeah,
which to
exactly
me
that.
seems almost inevitable. It's amazing to me, like if you are talking about like when did we discover like Humea and these other ones that you're talking about? When did we first see those?
It was round about the turn of the century, really, for all of the dwarf planets. They were being
Wow.
discovered kind of from 1995 through into the early 2000s. So it's very, it's
Wow.
very recent, because we've got to work out the
Wow.
meaning and put them in people's charts and look at the discovery. So it takes time. And because they move slowly, it
Yeah.
takes time to get the information. Something that moves quickly, like Jupiter moves through a sign in a year, you get a lot of information quickly from that. Something
Wow.
that takes 300 years to move around, you've got to wait to see the effect it's having in people's charts, because they move so slowly.
Amazing.
So it's taken time, but I think they are, they're the next frontier for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. And
I'm
that's where
so
my
excited about that. Well, and then I imagine so the way that you find meaning from those is there'll probably be somebody who gets a download, who writes a book, who shares it. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
several things. It's the literal physical characteristics, like
Okay.
Homer's shape is like an egg, and
Oh.
she's the Hawaiian goddess of fertility.
Oh my
That
gosh.
reinforces the symbolism. It's whether planets have extremely elliptical orbits, like Sedna, that goes way out to the edge of our galaxy, to the Oort cloud, and brings back information far galaxies. So you get some physical information. It's the discovery chart, the moment of discovery. And luckily, we've got a brilliant astronomer in Arizona, Mike Brown, who's very tuned into getting the time and giving it a name, and he's very tuned into mythology. So he helps us a lot. So you look at the actual birth chart of the discovery, and
Okay.
then you start to put them in people's charts and say, okay, how is this person living out the archetype, so we can get more information.
Oh, so you can learn about, I love that you can look at, it's just like all of spirituality. You can look within or look in the physical body to understand the universe, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see the from the small, but then extrapolate that out to interpret it for everyone.
I
That's
mean,
super cool.
something that happened when I was with Veda Austin at Glastonbury, it was exactly on the solar eclipse that we just had in Libra. And the solar eclipse was exactly opposite Salacia to the degree. Salacia is linked to the shimmering sunlight, moonlight on the sea. I think she's very linked to photonic energy. But in the workshop we were doing with water, I suddenly realized Veda kind of spotted part of the picture, and then I suddenly thought, gosh, this is light language. Selassie is related to light language. So
Oh,
it's going to be interesting going forwards, putting Selassie in people's birth charts and saying, are those the people who are now starting to talk light language,
oh,
particularly from that solar eclipse on the 2nd of October.
wow. Wow, wow, wow.
And
Oh
you
my
see
gosh,
how
that's
it works.
fascinating.
We're adding to it all the time as we have experiences and dreams and
Yeah.
downloads,
Yeah.
and then we put it together and say, are other people experiencing this, and can we add it into the symbolism?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh. Man, well, I feel like we could talk for like another 2 hours because I have like so much I want to ask you, but I also have to be respectful of your time. I know, I know you've been so busy, by the way. By the way, I cannot help but notice I've never seen it before on your videos. Maybe it's because it's clearer now that we're on Zoom, but I see you have there's astrology symbols on your pillows.
I had to buy these. I've
They're
got two
so
sofas,
great.
and it was just a regular department store. And I was married at the time. We went into this regular department store. We needed new furniture for the new house, and I just said, I've got to have those.
Yeah.
And this was like 25 years ago, but they're like big skiing sofas. You can just disappear into them, and it was non-negotiable. We have to have.
Must have. Yeah, they're super cool. I just see a little Scorpio right up there in the corner, which is
Yes,
super cool.
amazing. And I love the color, and so they work really well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to do this again. I feel like we're now here we are in what is this? It's October 17th today, full moon. Like I am on pins and needles to see how this one evolves. And the end of this month, I feel like is like this period, this next couple of months, I feel like are going to be super powerful. So it would be great to get back together again in do our quarterly chat and
Yeah.
see how this stuff has unfolded. I think that we will at that point be talking about some of the things that this kind of first section of things the angels have told us about, and we will see how they actually came out in the world. Because as I say, there's no plan that survives contact with reality. So we'll see how it manifests. Although they've been shockingly accurate. I actually think that phrase, no plan survives contact with reality, I think that is because most planning comes from the head and not from the heart. And I think when we come from the heart, we tend to be much more tuned in and things tend to work out a lot
100%.
better.
And that's the shift we're going to make. We're going to move from
Yeah.
head to heart in a
Yeah.
very big way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to do this again. And it's great because we have so many connections coming from very different places, very different
Yes.
modalities. So no, I'd be delighted to do this again, truly.
I
So
love it.
it's like a detective hunt, isn't it? It's a very exciting job.
It really is. I totally agree. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pam. And then anybody who has not followed Pam yet, her channel is Pam Gregory Astrologer, and I highly recommend it. The video she mentioned in our talk today was the one that she just published. Can you say the name of it again, Pam?
Yeah, I'm going to put it out tomorrow. It's the new moon in Scorpio. I'm going to put that out tomorrow. Yeah, I
Perfect.
managed to get it done today, luckily. So
Okay. I am excited to watch that one. And then the one that you just published that I watched last night was the one that was with the question mark. What is the title of that one? Because you mentioned
Metamorphosis for Humanity, question mark.
perfect. And that one you're more talking about just the trends and some of the things we touched on today. So that's another great one for people to catch. So so thank you so much. And we will
I've
do this
loved it.
again very very soon.
Yeah, I really loved it. And so again, I know how busy you are as well. You've got a crazy schedule. So again, thanks so much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. It's been great. We're riding whitewater waves right now, but we'll end up in a good place.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pam.
Lots of love. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening.